Thanks for having me.
No.
So nice to meet you.
Great to meet you, Rachel. What a story you've got. Tell us about the business and the app you're developing.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Allara, which is my primary business that I run. So I've been working in disability for about 20 years. I got called a veteran the other day, which was hilarious. And I started off after having quite a traumatic upbringing, as we were just discussing. And after I overcome all of the adversity from drug and abuse and all of that kind of thing, I came out the other side and I asked my mum, what should I do with my life? And she had said to me probably one of the most profound things, and that was, why don't you use your lived experience to give back and do something meaningful? And firstly, I never thought anybody would give me a job, but I landed a job as a disability support worker in a group home. And I always say that I thought I was there caring for them, but they were the ones that were shaping me and truly changing my life. And for the first time in my life, I finally felt like a good person after not feeling like a really great person for a long period of time. And so I owe my entire life to the disability community, my 3 beautiful children and the life that I've created. And so I started working in the sector then, and mostly working in group home accommodation with people with quite complex needs. And I worked my way up the corporate ladder through that time. And it was when I was off having my firstborn, Bella, and I was like, I worked 3 jobs and I was like, what am I going to do? And so I decided to open Allara, which is my NDIS business that I registered when I was off on maternity leave. And the reason why I opened that organisation is because, quite frankly, housing for people with disabilities was diluted to shared accommodation.
Right.
And I thought that we needed to create more innovative ways for people with disabilities to live. And so that's what I wanted to do.
So because it sounds easy when you explain it like that, but I couldn't help but thinking, wow, that took a big step to actually go from working in a support network to starting your own business. And what sort of support did you build around yourself in terms of business mentors, processes, partners, that sort of thing?
Well, I often think that I'm so grateful for all of the adversity that I went through in my younger life, because it created what I refer to as the mongrel inside of me. And that was the starting point. It was the need to prove everybody wrong and that I could do something with my life. And so that was step 1. And then throughout my career, I just worked really hard and I took all the shots at all of the mentors that I wanted to work with. So I asked my general manager to be a mentor for me. I went to the Tony Robbins, UPW, like I did all of the personal
So did you have a
myself.
plan in your mind?
No plan. Oh my goodness, no plan at all.
So it evolved over the period.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so throughout my career, I just took every opportunity I could and just worked really, really hard.
Yeah.
And then when I started Allara, I just essentially translated that all of my learnings from my corporate career, having no tertiary education or anything, but just the grit and determination to work really hard and to be mentored by people and to learn from people that had walked the same walk before. And then when I started Allara, that's when I really invested in coaches and mentors and have since spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands on coaches and mentors, not specifically like lots of strategic and business support, but more around, who I needed to become and the limiting beliefs that I needed to overcome in order to be the type of leader I wanted to be.
So tell me about that.
Well, I suppose, I was riddled with imposter syndrome when I started Allara, and there was, this quiet little, I call the monkey on my shoulder, that whenever you would try and do something, and whether that was starting Allara initially or opening the first group home or going out and talking to your first, potential client or speaking in front of people or even now speaking in front of you, the little monkey comes up and is like, how could you do this? Why, who do you think you are? You're still, the child from your trauma, and all that kind of stuff. So what you have to do over time, and what I've worked with coaches through a bunch of different modalities is, working to, show up, like to talk to my ego, to talk to my inner child, to do all of the personal development work, whether it be through breath work or NLP or hypnotherapy or what have you, and just working through all of your own internal stuff.
Yep. So what sets you apart from others in the industry, the organisation?
Okay.
What do you bring? What's unique?
Well, there's a couple of things. So Allara is the Supported Independent Living Specialist. And for those of you who don't know what SIL is, and that's the acronym, it's basically 24-hour care in some type of residential care facility. And under the NDIS, we have a whole bunch of different registration groups in services that you can offer. And I made the really conscious decision early on is to do one thing and do it really, really well.
Right.
And that is to provide 24-hour care to people with quite complex needs. And I wanted to do that through creating innovative housing models. So rather than just offering people with disabilities a traditional group home, I wanted to try and create innovative housing solutions where they could still receive 24-hour care but not have somebody in their face all of the time.
Right, yeah.
So that's where
So involved in the infrastructure as well.
Correct. So we were able to do, things which we refer to as the vertical model, where we have an on-site concierge service, which sounds a bit sexy, So essentially they can access 24-hour care through an on-site apartment where they can essentially buzz when they need support, and then somebody will go up and give them a hand, whether it be a transfer or personal care, collecting their mail, helping them set up for work, whatever it is for them. And that's just one of, multiple different innovations that we've done within the housing space.
So how many people working in the organisation?
So we've got just over 400 staff, in 5 years.
My goodness.
Yeah, so amazing people in the family of Allara. And we have about 40 homes or, SIL services, because some of them range from 1 individual to 20 individuals, depending on the type of housing they reside in. And so we have about 40 across New South Wales, and we grow by about 8 services per year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you keep the culture within Allara? You're a person that would have moulded Allara into your values and personality. How do you protect that when you grow so quickly?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think you nailed it when you said values, right? I think that when I started business, I created a set of values in order to get NDIS registration. That's just the truth, right? And so they were a bunch of words on a piece of paper that didn't really mean anything. And so as I've grown and I've embedded or I've created actual values that represent us as a business and brought in my team members and said, how do we think that we live and breathe our values within the organisation? And then we basically live within value system. So, for example, one of us is nothing about you without you. And that means that the participant is the driver of their own life, as every individual should be, and we won't make decisions about them without them.
Yep.
And so that's just one example. And so when we onboard our staff, we make sure that they know that they're not to make decisions on behalf of somebody. When you take a participant out shopping, they can tell the shopkeeper what they want to buy,
Right. Yeah.
So that's just one example of that.
Yeah.
So we really just try and embed the values into our business.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so what's your focus as the organisation's grown? You can't do everything. Have you built a team to, if you like, plug the gaps in your knowledge or abilities? Because there's no one person that can look after every part of a business. Like, I'm a big picture person. I need details people around me, sort of thing.
100%. Yeah, I figured that out a little bit too late, I think, is that I was the innovator, not the implementer, and definitely the big picture girl as well. And so I think one of probably my biggest personal development times in my career was when I went through burnout in 2024 and realizing that I needed support around me. And that's when I decided to bring on a C-suite executive team. And again, that little monkey was like, if you bring on all of these really smart people that have worked in big corporate gigs and all that kind of, that have the tertiary education, all that kind of stuff, that, that you'll be found out. And what I quickly realized, it has actually had the opposite effect. It actually elevated myself, my business. It allowed me to work in my genius zone, and my business and the participants that we're so fortunate to serve were even better off because of the people in my business.
Right. You talk about your genius zone. What's that?
So I always say that everybody should operate within their genius zone. And so for me, that is being the innovator. So in order to be in innovation, I need to have creative space.
Yep.
And so I can't do that if I'm bogged down in my emails. And so what I really like to do when I'm working across any of the businesses that I'm fortunate to be a part of now, because there's a few, is that I like to be strategic and create the direction, and I like to activate people and gather people around for a common cause and inspire and motivate them. And that's where I feel like I have the most impact in my business. I also, want to become a thought leader in our space, so be able to do interviews such as this, etc. So I had to get out of my own way, be able to sit in my genius zone, and then get other people to plug those additional gaps. Yeah.
So what's the future pathway look like?
I always refer to us as the Louis Vuitton of SIL, and we will continue to do that and do that really well. So our primary focus is in making sure that people have extraordinary lives, and we're just there around to support them. And so we continue to have a focus on our customers' experience with us and seek feedback, and we want to continue to create innovative housing models where people can live truly independently, and that's actually what independence looks like to them, and then have the support around them in order to thrive.
Right.
Yeah.
And development for you? What's the future?
Oh God, that's a really hard question. My whole goal in life is to impact lives, Kochie, and can I call you Kochie?
Yeah, of course we can.
And is to impact lives. And so I'm so fortunate enough to do that through Allara and through the people we directly serve in that business. But long term, I want to find more grandiose ways to have more impact, whether that be across our sector through education or through Zoomly, our app, or through any other business that I can work alongside, support, invest in, or what have you. As long as I can impact lives and make a difference in my community, particularly the disabled community, that's all I want to do in life. So wherever that takes me.
Yeah, tell me about the app.
Okay, well, thank God you asked. Let me tell you. So essentially in 2024, I was having lots of conversations, particularly with NDIS participants, around their limited access to transport. And these conversations were becoming more and more frequent. And it was when I wanted to take a friend of mine who is a wheelchair user, down to a business breakfast with me to present on how to make your workplace more accessible to a bunch of business owners, because I think that that's important. And we tried for 3 weeks to get this gentleman transport, and we tried multiple different service providers. We had to call 3 weeks in advance, and we couldn't get access to transport. So we ended up, recording that interview together, and we presented that at the business breakfast. But he missed out on the opportunity to come and present as someone with lived experience, right? And that's just one example on how people with disabilities in this country have just resigned to the fact that they just stay at home. And I was having too many of these conversations, and I said to myself, someone's got to do something about this. And then finally I was like, I'm just part of the problem unless I do something about it too. And so that's where Zoomly was born. Oh. And so what we're trying to create, or what we are creating, is an app. We're just about to hit our MVP. Is an app whereby people with disabilities can utilise their NDIS funding to access transport like you or I would on demand in future, via an app, which is mainstream for any Australian, and get access to a rider so that they can access the community as independently as possible.
Wow, that's fantastic. Because mobility is just the secret to independence, isn't
Absolutely.
it? And freedom, and it's not just physical, it's emotional, it's psychological, that sort of freedom. Absolutely. Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's certainly you're in your genius spot there with innovation and setting trends. All the very best with it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for chatting.
Thank you so much.